Hello, my name is Avi Woolman. I'm with Keller Williams South Park. I'm a real estate agent in North Carolina and South Carolina, licensed. And today I want to speak to you about the process of buying a house in North Carolina. This video is specifically for first-time home buyers. The pandemic caused a lot of people to stay much longer time in their house. We're spending a lot of time in the house, and that's why we see a lot more buyers now. We need to kind of reevaluate what we need in terms of our home, and a lot of high-income renters are now searching for buying homes and starting to look into home ownership. Because of the pandemic and also because of the history low interest rates right now. So at the moment in Charlotte, North Carolina, it is a seller's market and we have low inventory but quite a lot of demand in terms of home buyers on the market. So it is important to kind of know what to expect when you want to buy your first home and what kind of expenses you need to save for and know about. So the first thing to do when you want to buy a house is actually to speak to a lender before you look at homes in neighborhoods. You need to speak to a lender and get pre-qualified and pre-approved. This pre-approval letter will give you two things. First of all, it's your budget. It's basically you found the money. In order to find a house, you need to find the money first. And the second thing, it will give you a competitive advantage, especially in this market when we see a lot of multiple offer situation. When you are putting an offer on the house that you want with a pre-approval letter, your offer is stronger and you have much more chances of getting it accepted by the seller, because the seller knows that you can afford this house for sure, and it's less likely that something will go wrong and the loan will not finalize. So this is why it's important for you to have a pre-approval letter first. So you got a pre-approval letter and now you are looking to buy a house. So you need to speak to your realtor about your needs and your family needs in terms of bedroom count and the size of the house that you're looking for, what neighborhood you're looking to live at, what kind of criteria you want the search to be at. Do you want to be close to uptown or the airport or some highway in a specific exit? All these stuff you can communicate with your realtor, and then she can set you up in a search in MLS, and this way you'll have an email with a list of homes that are available on the market right now that matches your criteria. In this kind of market where, like I said before, it's very low inventory, your realtor has to work a little bit harder than before, because if you're only going to look at the houses that are on the market, it will be very hard sometimes to find the exact house that you're looking for. So your realtor should have a list of off-market homes that you will be able to also look at that list, and that will help because the inventory is low and it will give you more options to look at. So your realtor will take you to see a few homes that match your criteria that you choose to look at, and after a few homes you should be able to see the house that you love and that you are ready to put an offer on. And in this case, you are putting an offer now. You have to look into a few things when it comes to writing an offer with your realtor. First of all, the price that you're offering to purchase this house for. Your realtor should be able to give you some kind of comparative market analysis. We can look, as realtors, we can look at homes that were sold in the recent months within the neighborhood and see how the prices are trending, if it's going up or down, and what they sell for, and kind of adjust the price according to the condition of the house and the time on the market, the amount of days that the house is on the market. And this kind of information will help you decide on the price that you want to offer on the house. Two things to also decide on is 2 checks that you will have to write. It's optional, it's negotiable, you don't have to, but in this competitive market, we usually do offer those 2 checks, and they're called the due diligence fee and the earnest money fee. So what are these things? The due diligence fee is basically some money that you are paying the seller directly once you are under contract, and you are buying some time. Basically, you're buying with this money time. It is non-refundable. You will not get that money back unless you buy the house, and it will come as credit in the closing. So you will get that as credit towards the purchase price if you buy the house. This basically is asking the seller, hey, I'm giving you some money just to take your house off the market for a couple of weeks. Usually that's called the due diligence period. It's usually about 2 weeks, and that's the time that you're purchasing in order to inspect the house, do all the inspection, the termite, appraisal, check everything that you need to check in order to make the final decision of getting the house, buy the house or not buy the house. The second check that you will have to write, and you put it in the offer, is the earnest money. And this is money that goes to the escrow agent. It's going to a trust account, and it will be held in the trust account untouched until closing. And this is money that shows how serious you are to the seller, how much you want the house. This is the money that you will get back if you do decide to back out of the contract and not buy the house. But that decision that you're making not to buy the house is within the due diligence period, then you will get the earnest money deposit back. But the due diligence fee is non-refundable. So basically, you're putting these 3 numbers in the offer, and there are 2 options for the seller, actually 3 options for the seller. Once you submit the offer, the seller can reject it, they can accept it, and they can counter it, which means they can say, okay, you offered me $290, I would like $300 instead. And then it goes backwards and forwards until both sides, the buyers and the sellers, agree on a price and terms, and communicate that agreement. They sign the contract, both sides sign the contract, and both of them are communicating it to each other. That basically makes you under contract. So once you submit the offer and the seller accepts the offer and communicates it back to you or your realtor, then you are under contract to buy the house in these terms and in this price that you decided. So once you are under contract, you need to immediately write those 2 checks, the due diligence fee and the earnest money, and you submit that and send the due diligence to the seller directly and the earnest money to the escrow agent. And then there are a few things that you need to do, and that will cost you a little bit of money during the due diligence period. So the first thing is that there's 2 things that you will pay your lender directly. It's the credit report fee and the appraisal. So the lender wants to make sure that they are not lending you more money than the house is worth. So they're ordering an appraisal, which you will have to pay the lender. And they want to make sure that you're not paying more than the house is worth, and that they're not lending you more than the house is worth. So that's the first 2 things that you will have to pay. The next thing, which is very important and I recommend to all my buyers to do, is inspection. So you need to do a structural inspection where they will take a look at the foundation of the house, electrical, plumbing, all the things around the house that you need to check if everything works, and if there are any major issues with the house. You can also do a termite inspection and a radon test. And I always recommend to do as many tests on as many inspections as you can in order to make sure that you know what you're going into, because it is the biggest investment of your life. You want to make sure that you're going into a good house you want to make sure that you know what you're going into. And so you're doing all these inspections, and the inspection report will come back to you, and then you can see if there are major issues with the house. You can either ask from the seller to fix them, or you can buy it as is, or you can fix it yourself afterwards. It's up to you. In this market, where it's, like I said, it's a seller's market, we usually don't ask much from the sellers because they can sell it. I mean, in North Carolina, the law is anyway, the houses are selling as is. So as a buyer, you have the right to ask for whatever you want to ask from the seller to fix stuff in the house. But the seller does not have to do it. He can just sell it as is. And so this is where, after you get the inspection report, this is where your realtor will be able to negotiate in your behalf with the seller on repairs and fixes, and if you want some of the furniture to stay, if you want the washing machine and dryer to stay with the house, and so on. You can do all the negotiation during the due diligence period. And also, if the appraisal comes back in a good price, which is the price that you're paying or more, then everything is good, and it sounds like you are ready to move on. If you decide to continue with the process past the due diligence period, then you won't be eligible for the refund of the earnest money anymore. You basically are you pass the due diligence period. That means you cannot get the earnest money deposit back, and now we're waiting for the closing. So during the time between after the due diligence period until the closing, that's when the lender will ask from you as a buyer for all the documents that they were missing, everything that they need in order to finalize the loan and get it ready and set for the closing table. And other expenses that you will have will be all itemized in the closing disclosure. The closing disclosure is something that you will get in about 2 days before closing, and that will show everything, all the money and all the fees that you as the buyer is responsible to pay at the closing. That includes the loan fees, origination fees, the down payment, homeowner's insurance, which you will have to pay for the whole year at the closing table, and property tax for your part of the year. Property tax has to be paid at the closing table by the buyer and the seller, each one for the time that they owned it in that particular tax year. Title insurance, recording fees, all the other fees will be itemized. Usually closing cost is around $5,000 for the buyer, and you will have a total of the cash that you need to bring to the closing table at that time. And from there to the closing table, it's just to basically go and close, and that's all. The two things that I recommend, once you get pre-approved and get the pre-approval letter, don't go and buy anything big. Don't put yourself in any extra debt, and try to save some money, because it is expensive to buy a house. It's not just the money that you're paying for the house and the down deposit. There's a lot of other expenses in the process of the house. And also, if you do after you get pre-approved, if you do go and buy, I don't know, expensive car, there is a chance that you will not get the loan, and things will change there in the credit report, and you won't be eligible to the amount that you were when you were pre-approved. So once you're pre-approved, don't do anything crazy with your money. Don't buy anything expensive or luxury all of a sudden. Keep your finances in the same status or better. Just save. That's what I recommend. Also, I recommend you guys to drive around different neighborhoods before, after you're pre-approved. Just drive around to see what kind of neighborhoods you feel comfortable living in. Because it is one of the biggest investment of your life, and usually we don't buy a house every year. You want to stay there a few years. It makes more sense when you buy a house that you will stay there for a long term. Financially, it makes much more sense because buying a house is expensive, so you don't want to do it every year. You want to stay there a few years at a time. Okay, so I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching. My name again is Avi Woolman, and I am a real estate agent with Keller Williams. If you are considering buying a house in the Charlotte area, don't hesitate to contact me, ask me a question. My number is 704-497-5917. Thank you so much, and have a great day.